day. It takes about 24 hours to send them. Okay, so the first specialist cost is activity-based costing. Of course, it will work hand in hand with traditional costing system of absorption costing. Now, in activity-based costing, we try to explain what causes a cost to happen. For example, if you have high fuel costs, you need to find out why do you have high fuel costs. Then it means people are traveling a lot in the organization. So it's a costing technique which explains factors which cause cost, to put it simple. Right? So based on the book, it says activity-based costing involves the identification of factors which cause the cost of an organization's major activities. So we're trying to identify factors which cause the cost of an organization's major activities. Now, because of this assumption, what we're going to be looking at is support overheads, which are going to be charged to products on the basis of usage of the factor causing the overhead. So in simple terms, we're going to be allocating overhead costs to products based on the factor which caused them. Activity-based costing has three assumptions. The first assumption is activity cause costs. So once we have activities at an organization, costs are going to happen. Examples of activities include maybe assembling those activities. So these activities will lead to cost. The second assumption, producing products creates demand for activities. So the moment we start to produce products at an organization, then activities are going to arise. So if we manufacture orange squash as a company, then expect activities like marketing, selling will take place. The final assumption is costs are going to be assigned to a product based on the product's consumption of activities. What we mean is that a product which consumes more resources is the one that we're going to allocate more overheads or more costs to it. So you can have these as questions to say which of the following assumptions. These are examined as multiple choice. In activity-based costing, there are two key terms which you have to understand. The first one is a cost pool. So a cost pool is an activity that consumes resources and for which overhead costs are identified and allocated. So every department, a department here we put as a cost pool. For example, assembly department, machining department, that is a cost pool. Then a cost driver is a unit of activity that consumes resources. For example, machine hours, labor hours, that's a cost driver. In absorption costing, we call it as activity level, but here in ABC, we call it as a cost driver. So understand these terms. Why was activity-based costing introduced? So it was introduced for three reasons. The first reason is because of large products or large range of activities that we have. Because now in the modern business environment, we see companies producing a lot of products and a wide range of activities so that they respond to what customer needs. Then the second reason for having ABC is that now, out of the three costs, we have got three main costs. We have material, labor, and overheads. Out of the three costs, overhead is now in large proportion to direct costs. In those days, it was labor which was large in proportion, but now overheads are large in proportion because of the manufacturing environment that we have. We are now using modern manufacturing technologies. Then finally, because now we have got advanced manufacturing technologies, it has become clear that it is activities that are causing production overheads, not volume. It is activities which are causing overheads, not volume. When we say volume, we mean units. So it's no longer labor hours, it's no longer units, but now overheads are facilitated by other activities such as setups, production lines, production orders, for instance. So that's the reason why ABC was introduced. At this point, I can ask if you have a question. Okay, and then we get it. For you to execute.
No question.
Okay. For you to execute ABC, you have to follow 5 steps. Now, in ABC, we are mostly interested in overheads. So we'll be looking at production overheads. So now, to deal with this production overhead, there are 5 steps you have to follow. Step number 1, you should group overheads into activities according to how they are driven. So what we mean, if you have got an overhead of 500,000 and you have got 4 activities, make sure you allocate that overhead into those activities. Then the second thing is you identify cost driver for each activity. For example, machining, you say machine hours. Production cost, maybe purchase orders. Alright, that's the second stage. Then step number 3, you calculate cost driver rate for each activity. So each activity should have its own cost driver rate. For example, for example, if machine department was 5,000 and the machine hours are 1,000, if you divide the two, you get 5. So you say $5 per hour. So cost driver rate is the same as overhead absorption rate. Then step number 4, you absorb activity cost in each product. So now the overhead absorption rate or the cost driver rate you have calculated in step number 3 should now be used to calculate the actual cost. That's what we mean by absorption. Then finally, you calculate the full product cost and profit and loss for each product. Now, full product cost, we are talking about 3 things: material, labor, and overheads. These 3 are full product costs. Now, step number 2, we have said we should calculate cost driver rates. So step number 2, I've said we should identify cost driver. So how do we identify cost drivers? So step number 1, we should group products into activities. So these are our activities: machining and running, components, setups, packing cost, inspection cost, dispatching orders, ordering cost, production scheduling. So these are activities, or we can call them as cost pools. Now, these activities, you need to identify their cost driver. For example, machining or running cost, you use number of machine hours. Component cost, you use number of orders, number of components. Setup cost, you use number of production setups. Packing cost, you use number of customer orders. Inspection cost, you use number of inspections. Dispatching cost, you use number of dispatches. Ordering cost, you use number of orders. And production scheduling cost, you can use number of production lines. So these things should be memorized. Okay, but sometimes you can use common sense, but it's better to memorize them. Now we have to practice an example on ABC. So give me a few minutes as get the example.